just finishing off a studio session because we're making a new documentary about the Aryan civilization, trying to find out whether they existed or not, where their homeland was, what kind of language they spoke, and it has been one of the most exciting journeys I think I've ever made. But why this is a particularly good time to be talking to you is this week I deliver my Socrates book, which I've been working on for over 5 years. It has nearly killed me, I can tell you. I mean, he is an amazing man with amazing ideas. He lived at the birth of all those great notions of democracy and liberty and freedom of speech, and yet he was poisoned by the Athenian state for speaking his mind freely. So he is a great character, but I have to say I'll be quite pleased to get the manuscript off my desk. It's been a very, very, very busy few months. I've been in Siberia and Kazakhstan. This was because we were trying to find, as I said, the root of the Aryan culture. There are some incredible new excavations there, Bronze Age excavations. What's particularly fascinating about them is that these cities are covered with swastika imagery. So rather than just looking at them as an archaeologist, you have to think, what is the political implication of these places? And certainly a lot of people, a lot of very high up heads of state have gone to visit these digs to try to see if they should associate themselves with these swastikas, because this is probably where the Aryans, the original Aryans, lived and worshipped and founded what is probably the basis of Western and Eastern civilization. I was there with the chief archaeologist, Professor Zdanovich, and he drove me 7 hours out into the steppe grasslands. I had no idea where we were going. And he took me to this amazing expanse of grass. And you couldn't really tell there was anything special about it. And suddenly, he didn't speak any English, but we kind of communicated by sign language. Suddenly, as he pointed to the ground, I realised that I was walking across a buried city. Every now and again, you suddenly notice these kind of ghostly shapes in the grassland, which were the shapes of fortresses and cattle sheds and homes and religious sites. And I would not have seen those had he not opened my eyes to what lay beneath my feet. So it was very, very stimulating, intellectually very exciting. However, I'm vegetarian, and the food was terrible. I was offered horse meat sausages, I was offered pork for breakfast, I was offered bacon for lunch, really nothing. So the only thing I could eat was buckwheat. So I've lived for the last 3 weeks on a diet of kind of pretty disgusting buckwheat soup. So that was a downside of this glorious search. The Aryan programme will be coming out in September on BBC Radio 3, so check out all the websites and we'll give you the precise times then. People always say to me, is there any other time that you would have liked to have lived? And I'm always torn. I have to say I would be very interested to spend one day as a Spartan girl running all those amazing races that the Spartan girls used to run, oiling other Spartan girls with olive oil and doing these exotic gymnastic contests. So that's one thing, because if you know anything about Sparta, this was a place where women were really valued, and Spartan girls has an unusual degree of freedom. So they got the same rations as their brothers and boy cousins. They could drink wine, they could choose younger lovers if they wanted to. So it would kind of be really, really interesting to just experience that for 24 hours. The other place, though, that I would really love to visit would have been Lesbos at the time of the poet Sappho. Even if you think you don't know Sappho's poetry, you probably do, because she was one of the first people to describe love as bitter sweet, although she actually called it sweet bitter, which is probably more appropriate because it usually starts off good and ends up going rather bad. But she uses beautiful lines. She talks about her daughter as being like a golden flower. She describes the magic of the silvery moon, and she seems to have devoted her life to trying to articulate the incredible, powerful, painful, beautiful thing that is love. So to spend just an afternoon with Sappho would have been a real treat. Obviously, I can't actually do that. So the second best thing is that I spent an afternoon in her company in a BBC radio studio, and we've made a programme all about Sappho called Sappho, The Great Life, which I think is going to go out on August the 17th. So one of the archaeologists I worked with was a Cossack, and he told me that it was very, very important for Cossack men to be virile, virile, to be muscular, and it was very important that Cossack women should do nothing other than produce children. So fascinated as I was by his worldview, I think I'm not ever going to end up as a Cossack wife.